Hello, good evening, and welcome to the February 2023 session of Galactic Terrors, the online reading series that scours the known universe for scary stories, strange tales, weird horror, and all sorts of literary oddities from the most imaginative authors writing in a variety of fascinating genres. I am Jim Chambers, and with me is my co-host, Carol Gyzander.
I'm Carol Gyzander. Nice to see everybody, or at least sort of see you. We are virtual.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for joining us for the latest Galactic Terrors session. We have a terrific lineup of readers tonight. We'll be welcoming Sam REBELEIN, TY DRAGO, and Sumiko Saulson. So he's going to have a nice mix of chilling fiction and poetry for you.
Yeah, that's always fun. And I like how people put their creative talents to use in many different genres and venues and all sorts of things. So that'll be fun to chat about.
Yes. And the Galactic Terrors reading series is sponsored by the New York chapter of the Horror Writers Association. So a shout out to all of our friends in the HWA NY for their support for Galactic Terrors and for the chapter. For those of you in the HWA who are active members or voting members, please make sure that you get around to looking at your preliminary ballot vote, which is going out right now for the Bram Stoker Awards. And that, I think, closes on February 15th. So you should have gotten an email. And if you didn't, send a note to ballotmaster@horror.org to get some help with that.
Mm-hmm. That's terrific. And lots of great folks on the list, including one of tonight's readers. Sumiko Saulson is on the list. So
yes. And I think she'll be reading from The Rat King, which is her work that's on the preliminary ballot.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I love the cover. We'll see that soon. Yeah.
Yes. And I misspoke. I should have said they will be reading from their work, which is on the ballot. My apologies, Sumiko.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, there's some other things going on within Horror Writers Association. This is the Black Heritage in Horror interviews going on this month. And every day on the horror.org site, there's been an interview with somebody fascinating and interesting in the horror community. We've had Maurice Broaddus, CC Adams, Wrath James White, Oganachawe Donald Epeke, Wimoto Nioka, Joel Gomez, and Eugene Bacon so far. And that's just, on the 9th of February. So there's one more coming every day for the rest of the month. Please take a look at those. Lots of interesting information about very talented folks.
There should be some great interviews there. And Wrath James White and Joel Gomez are guests of honor at the upcoming StokerCon 2023 in Pittsburgh this year.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. That's in June. So very cool. This has been a month, hasn't it, Jim?
Yes.
Only on the 9th,
It feels like 2023 is off to a rocky start, but hopefully it'll settle down and we have some great stuff to get us through, like Galactic Terrors and all sorts of cool stuff going on in the horror field right now. Mm-hmm. I'm sure everybody is just a buzz with discussions of Skinamarink, the latest and greatest experimental horror film. But we won't talk about Skinamarink too much tonight.
I have not seen it yet, but I've heard people say that you really should see it in a theater if you can. So as opposed to watching at home, I think it's the immersive experience, perhaps, is what they're referring to. So
it's an experience. Yes, that's a good way to describe it.
Okay. Now I gotta go. Cool. This is also an interesting time of year to just sit and read stuff. It's very cold outside in some places. Sometimes it's very warm. And I actually have been sitting down and reading an actual book. I do most of my consumption by audiobook, but somehow I grabbed a paperback and I've just been sitting and enjoying it. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's a good time of year to catch up on your reading. I've been reading a lot of William Hope Hodgson stories and rereading William Hope Hodgson stories, which that's about all I'll say, but I will say that's a little bit of a hint about something that will probably be announced later this year.
Well, I do love nautical stories, so that's very fun. I have written a few on a boat, so that's fun.
Excellent. Very cool.
Cool. Oh wow. So what do you think? There's one more thing we want to tell everybody about. We have a newsletter as well.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. All right.
Yeah, we send it out. We do not spam people. It's really only information about the show. But please feel free to join, and we'll put the link in the chat in just a minute. But we also do some drawings every month. We have a book or so to give away from for ebooks. I can talk, really, I can. We have ebooks to give away for people who are on the mailing list by the end of the show. So we would be delighted to have you join the list and have a chance to win a book. We'll send you.
Yes, and I'm going to put the link in the chat.
Yeah,
you all should see that.
Yes. Hello to everybody coming in most of the venues where we're broadcasting. You can type chats in there, and as we are writing with folks, reading with folks and talking with them, we are happy to take questions and comments. And if you have a question for one of the authors, we will try to pull it up from there and ask them your question. So it's very fun.
Yes, excellent. And of course, we have to make the obligatory request that you like our video and subscribe to our Galactic Terrors YouTube channel. I usually have some witty thing to say about how liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel helps keep the internet running. I think we all know that it's about 13 gerbils on hamster wheels. You know, we're mixing gerbils and hamsters that keep the internet running. So I'm not going to try
on coffee. On coffee.
On coffee, yes. Yeah. They just get a regular intravenous caffeine drip, and that powers the internet. But they really get a kick out of seeing likes and subscribes for our Galactic Terrors YouTube channel. So if you want to make the gerbils on the hamster wheels happy, you could like and subscribe.
Excellent. Cool.
All right.
Well,
so what do you think, Joey?
Let's jump in. We've got some really excellent readers. Yeah. I can't wait to hear what they're going to read for us.
I'm eager to hear the readings tonight. So our first reader, I will get started, is Sam REBELEIN. And we're going to just share with you the cover of the latest issue of The Deadlands, issue 21 from January, a Journal of Ends and Beginnings, which includes a story by Sam. And we encourage you to go check that out. The cover is fantastic. I hadn't seen that before this evening, and it's just really beautiful and evocative. Great for winter. Mm-hmm. All right. And Sam holds an MFA in creative writing from Goddard College with a focus on horror and memoir, a certificate of graduation from the Lubbock Area Square and Round Dance Federation, and that one trophy in The Last of Us Part 2 for when you beat the game on the hardest difficulty. Hard to say which of these is Sam's greatest accomplishment. Sam's work has appeared in Bourbon Pen, Coffin Bell Journal, The Dread Machine, Ellen Datlow's Best Horror of the Year, and elsewhere. HarperCollins horror and crime imprint William Morrow is publishing Sam's debut horror novel Edenville in fall 2023, and his debut short story collection The Poorly Made and Other Things in 2024. For more about Sam and pictures of his dogs, follow him on Twitter at Hillary Scruff. And you can also find out more about Sam at srebelein.com/work. And we'll put that URL in the chat in just a minute. So welcome, Sam.
Hey everyone. That intro is so much fun. I'm really honored to have that vibe be set for me. So I'm excited. I'm excited, especially because the Edenville and The Poorly Made both take place in the same world, and I think this is the most public forum I'm going to share some work from that world. I want to share the opening segment from The Poorly Made today, which I've been working on a bit. But the Poorly Made is a series of stories interwoven into a series of emails that this woman is sending to her brother over the course of a single evening as she drinks more and more, and he's not responding. And so she starts to unwind a little bit over the course of these emails. And the whole thing is presented as a single document. So I wanted to read just the preface to that document, which I think will be sort of a fun thing for people, because this is coming out after Edenville. So if you've read Edenville and then you pick up the story collection, there'll be some fun nods to that novel. But hopefully it'll serve as a nice like entree into the world for people who are new to it, which I guess is everyone here. Although my story in Deadlands, I also imagine is taking place in that world. So further incentive to check out that issue, which is just a really cool magazine. But anyway, without further ado, this is the very beginning of The Poorly Made and Other Things. This is a brief preface to the Durwood Papers. I received the following manuscript during the third semester of my graduate work at Branson College. At the time, my thesis was a critical analysis of the Crumdugger mythos, which was, I thought, my very clever moniker for the cycle of urban legends populating Crumdugger State Forest in upstate New York. Branson's campus is nestled against Crumdugger's southwestern periphery, just along the southern edge of Braddock County. Ergo, the many urban legends saturating Crumdugger's woods are a common point of discussion and debate among Branson's student body. Over the course of my first 2 semesters as a Bransonite, I became fascinated with the oral histories of the forest's various verminary infestations, both natural and unnameable. For my thesis work, I proposed a surveical history of Crumdugger's seemingly countless supernatura. I intended to catalog what I considered the most intriguing of these legends, and to pick apart their origins in a wider socioeconomic context. I focused primarily on the cart stream, the endless stairs, the infamous doll thing, and a handful of other myths. Having never witnessed any of these subjects myself, I viewed such legends with no small amount of amusement and skepticism. But that was before I knew about Renfield County, before I received the Durwood Papers. After that, it became alarmingly difficult to ignore the sinister, cackling magic of the woods, the way the branches whispered to each other, passing messages back and forth over unimaginable distances, the way the tangles of roots underground called to the dead. The Durwood Papers taught me to believe. They taught me to fear. I discovered the papers on my doorstep one morning last October. They were sealed in a large Ziploc bag and stapled to a cover letter addressed to me. The letter is written in an angular, devilish scrawl on yellowing, college-ruled paper. 2 pages long, impressively mechanical in its execution, not a single typo throughout, and so full of complimentary phrases that I can't help but feel flattered as I recall some of them now. Phrases such as the author's insistence that I should appreciate this collection because I am so goddamn smart. This letter explains that the bag's contents are highly valuable, which is underlined 3 times. Quote, "This is the only copy. We hunted for weeks for someone who would treat it with the respect it deserves, and after hearing about your research, we chose you. That's a compliment. You should feel fucking flattered." And I am. I'm very flattered indeed. Okay. According to the letter, these papers were plucked out of a woman's car as she sat dying in it one morning at about 4 a.m. The papers consist of several sheafs of torn and weathered email printouts, a series of messages sent from one Rachel Durwood to her brother Tom over the course of a Friday evening in late September 2018. Miss Durwood, it would seem, is the one whose car the letter's authors discovered and subsequently raided. Why she printed all these feverish, upsetting messages and had them with her in her car just before she smashed herself into a guardrail eludes my understanding. Not even the authors of the cover letter seem to know. Miss Durwood was, according to her emails, far too inebriated to drive properly, and it is no surprise that she never made it to her destination. The cover letter describes the scene in gleeful detail. Ribs crushed against the steering wheel, engine smoking in dented shreds. We were only going to scrap her car, maybe raid her home too. She wasn't using it anymore. But when we noticed all these pages in her passenger seat, we were so interested that we snatched them right up, took a few parts from her engine, and went about our merry way. We didn't check, but we assumed she didn't make it. In Renfield County, no one ever does. Miss Durwood's emails provide a comprehensive look into the supposedly infamous history of this place I had never heard of, Renfield County. She'd collected scraps of local legend, personal anecdotes, memories. She seems to have put quite a lot of time and effort into compiling it all, and apparently assembling such a chronicle was a novel concept, an inspiration. From the cover letter again, well, we thought, why not? It's such a great idea. Why not document the stories of this valley? Why not go around with paper and pen and let the organisms of this place tell their tales? It'd be nice to have a record. So we've done exactly that. Gone around and listened to the voices of this land. We've written down everything they had to say, and we present our fragments, our dictations, and our hearsays here. A compliment to Rachel's own bits and pieces. Sure enough, crammed between the pages of Durwood's emails are several lengths of crinkling yellow legal paper, written in the same hand as the cover letter. Nearly 200 leaves in all, torn raggedly from their pad, all ring-stained and puckered by fat drops of dark fluid. Each page bears a dense constellation of pockmarks, crinkles, and burns, and every page is filled to the brim with black-inked chicken scratch, utterly crude but somehow precise in its sharp edges, its points, as if the entire thing were penned to look sinister, as if this were all an act, a prank. There are times when I stubbornly believe that these handwritten stories are fictional, but somewhere under the surface of this document there lies a bestial laughter, a haunting, giggling shadow that will not allow me to ignore the fact that this all feels true. I could almost hear these voices telling each and every story as I touched the surfaces of those pages. Perhaps I should have burned them immediately. But the cover letter concludes with the author's assurance that if I opt not to preserve this document, if I eschew my duties as a scholar and dispose of the papers altogether, I will be severely punished. Quote, "We know what makes you scream. We've watched you pick your nose. We know what's in your poop. Don't mistake us. We know you. We know you all." Signed, ominously, The Laughter in the Undergrowth. The Durwood papers irrevocably swallowed my attention and my time. Ensuring their preservation and investigating their veracity became the prime focus of my graduate work at Branson. Crumdugger mythos be damned. I was shocked to discover that Renfield County not only existed, but lay so close, no more than an hour's drive from Branson, up a road called the Billows Road. How had I never heard of this? How could such an apparently vast abattoir of myth lie so close to my home? How many unseen realms exist just beneath our awareness at any given moment? I spent months driving endlessly around Renfield's forested roads, its quaint village streets, wondering how this valley had escaped public knowledge for so long. It wasn't until I visited the Edenville Public Library, referenced twice by Miss Durwood in her emails, that I realized why. The two kind librarians working there, Marcia and Cindy, informed me that the Billow Hills, the scythe-shaped range separating Renfield from Braddock County, serve as a kind of wall between Renfield and the rest of the world. Myths tend not to pass through this wall, according to Cindy and Marcia. When I expressed disbelief that no stories escape the valley, the women frowned and said as one, "Well, they tend not to," implying that some stories do, in fact, slip through the cracks. But of course that must be the case. How else would this Laughter in the Undergrowth have contacted me? I spent the better part of a year poring over this document, reading and rereading. I grew paranoid. I caught glimpses of things outside my window, these small, round, hairy creatures. I heard them giggling at me from the dark outside my apartment, taunting me with whispered mockeries. Once, just before midnight, I was at my desk, analyzing a page of one of the stories in the Durwood papers, when a wet, rasping voice came from the window behind me. "Nice calves, fat ass." I leapt to my feet and whirled about, just in time to see a flash of yellow eyes, a grinning, fanged mouth, and a rustling of leaves. I could hear their tittering mirth in the shrubs outside my window. That became a disturbingly frequent occurrence. I began to assume that these creatures were collectively the Laughter, that the Laughter was haunting the forest edge near my apartment building in order to keep an eye on me, to make sure I was working as instructed. And to be fair, nothing gave me more incentive to continue working on the papers than the knowledge that I was being monitored by something cruel. Is that what you wanted to hear? After scanning the original document for further study, I brought the papers to the Edenville Public Library for preservation. Cindy and Marcia were delighted to have the document in their possession, so much so that they snatched it from my grasp the very moment I walked through the door. They told me they had indeed known Miss Durwood, had spoken with her on several occasions, and actually supplied her with most of the materials she needed for her research. They'd even gone through the trouble of compiling those materials in a large box, which they offered to show me, but I declined, instead trusting a small murmur in my gut that urged me to return home before sunfall, which was just beginning to encroach upon the library. The sun officially set just as I was crossing the county line, and mere moments before I rolled back down the Billows Road into Braddock, some five-legged thing leapt at my car, scratching deep trenches along the hood. Since then, I haven't been back to Renfield County. Even after all this time, I struggle to contextualize the document you now hold. I struggle to effectively introduce my thesis, The Poorly Made and Other Things, an in-depth exploration of the Durwood papers. How can I possibly begin this delve into a darkly stained and poisoned land? I still don't fully know. But I think I've belabored the point long enough, so without further ado, I present here, in their entirety, at the behest of the laughter of the undergrowth, the Durwood papers. It is my sincere hope that this restoration of that muddied, bloodied document will provide readers with some insight into Renfield's hidden valley, but it is mainly my hope that it will satisfy you. Please let this be enough. Please do not ask more of me. Please stop pinning entrails to my front door and leaving me notes in blood regarding my weight. I have a healthy BMI. Please stop banging on my windows at 2 a.m. and insisting that my friends all secretly hate me, that my father is ashamed of me. Please stop shouting these things at me through the glass. I can't sleep. I don't know what more you want. I don't know why you're so entertained by my suffering, why you've called in a bomb threat to Branson in my name twice. I almost wasn't allowed to graduate. Perhaps that's hilarious to you, you so-called undergrowth, but it's not funny to me, not in the slightest. Please stop mailing dung to my thesis advisor. Please stop slashing my tires. Please return my dog Truman in one piece. Please let this be enough. I've done what you've asked, so please leave me alone. Signed, Sam REBELEIN, June 30th, 2019, for Oak Hill, New York. That's the end of the preface to the collection. I think anytime you can write yourself into the world, like, why not? But anyway, that's my intro. So.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to say this, and everybody in the chat agrees with me. You've got to do the audiobook of this, right?
I'm hoping I get to audition. I'm pretty sure. So at the very least, like, I'll have a fun story to tell about how I lost the audition to my own book. But,
I couldn't even make them believe my memoirs. No, that's not true. Yeah, right. Wow, that was really engaging. I mean, and I really like how you took us from just, it's a academic kind of thing, and I got some papers and blah blah blah, and we're getting more and more into this. So it's like, weird. Now, let me ask you, Sam REBELEIN, academic person, if you got that letter, what would you do?
Gosh, I mean, I think you have to go along with it. I mean, especially if you're being spied on at your desk. I think that like sort of intrusion on this space, and I'm a big nighttime writer, so I really like having the like safe bubble of just your desk lamp and a candle, and everything else is dark. So I think the thought of anything else like intruding upon that, especially to like whisper through the window at me about my weight or whatever, like that would, you gotta follow through. But I can imagine, going to investigate during the day and then driving back long before night. What would you do if you got that letter, Carol? Would you?
I might consider burning it. I don't know. What would happen if you did? I wonder.
I know, right?
Mm.
Only one way to find out.
Of course, then you make a copy, then you burn it. I don't know. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's intriguing that you've got the same world in multiple works here, and even you mentioned in the story in Deadlands. So what? Even though that's not necessarily critical for that, but what is it about this place that speaks to you so much that it's entering into multiple places?
I just really love the woods. When I was 8, I lived outside of Cincinnati, and it was very like concrete and suburban. And then I moved to New York, and in upstate, it's woodsy and sort of dark and twisty. And I just felt like it was a very magical place. And so writing about that place as an adult, I really want to keep that magic and mystery and sort of spookiness alive. I spent a lot of time just sort of driving around the Hudson Valley at night. I live in Poughkeepsie, so Renfield and Braddock counties are very much like warped versions of the Hudson Valley. And I think just driving around that valley at night, you just feel like I should really try to make it home relatively soon,
and relatively intact. Yeah,
relatively intact. Yeah. And there are definitely some pieces in The Poorly Made that are inspired by driving around at night, and especially like if one road is out of commission and you have to take a detour, like that could be the end, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, who made that detour? Yeah.
So I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say I grew up in Buffalo, Utica, Syracuse. A little north and west of there, and you leave a town and you are in dark. 5 minutes out, there's nothing there. Except the things that are watching with those yellow eyes that you mentioned. Yeah. So,
yeah. And I think so that was really important to me, just keeping that sort of 8-year-old magic alive in a way that still felt spooky to me as an adult. So
yeah. So we just had a quick comment from one of our regular guests.
I saw that.
Grace more Beavis and Butthead elements
it,
in your writing. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Nick. And lots of people had very nice things to say about it. Okay, here's a question. Not the dog.
Yeah, not the dog. Truman is my actual dog's name too. I figured, in for a penny, in for a pound. But he's safe. He's in the other room, as far as I know.
Okay. So, okay. Yeah, and Lauren wanted us to return Truman as well. Yeah. So that's important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we also had a question here from Vincent. Have any of the shorts for The Poorly Made been published in mags already?
They have. The first story, Hector Brim, came out in Planet Scum a couple years ago. I love Planet Scum. I think it's a really cool magazine. And My Name is Ellie came out in Bourbon Pen a couple years ago as well. And that was the one that was in Ellen's Best Horror of the Year. And then
congratulations, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that was
that's
great.
A bucket list item. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's another story about an old guy who like sits around in a tub drinking beer all day, and that was actually my very first short story publication, like 6 years ago now. Yeah, those are the 3 that have shown up elsewhere.
Okay. And I just have to ask you before we wrap up, we'll ask you to come back on with everybody at the end and you can tell us about more things that are coming up. But I just have to ask you as well, there was a story that you read at StokerCon that I heard you reading. And if you remember, I went absolutely nuts about it. It was One of the Flies. Can you tell me anything about that story? Is that anywhere yet?
It is.
Okay.
I don't have the contract signed, so I'm going to hold off on saying
not a word
something.
Then. Not a word. Okay.
But yeah, big plans for my. It was called My Summer of George.
It was a bad. I mean, that story has stuck with me for so long.
One.
Yeah. So once it comes out, we will let everybody know, and you'll have to come back and read it. So yeah. All right.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sam. This is so much fun. I had a lot of fun chatting with you and listening.
Yeah, I'm glad. Me too.
So thanks. So now we get to hear from TY DRAGO. TY is a full-time writer and the author of 10 published novels, including his 5-book Undertaker series from Source Books, Month 9 Books, the first of which has been optioned for a feature film. His most recent novels are Dragons from eSpec Books, which is a YA science fiction gender bender about a dragon in space. And Rags from Neo Paradoxa, which is a YA horror novel about voodoo and mayhem in 1980s Atlantic City. He's also the founder, publisher, and managing editor of Allegory, a highly successful online magazine that for 20 years has featured speculative fiction by new and established authors worldwide. He's now under contract for his novel, The New Americans, a work of historical fiction and a collaborative effort with his father, who passed away in 1992. If that last sentence leaves you with questions, check out his podcast called Legacy, the Novel Writing Experience, to get the whole story. He lives in New Jersey with his wife, Helene, plus 1 dog and 2 goofy chickens. And Jim, I believe we have a cover that we can show of his book, Rags. True? There it is. I love that. That's Atlantic City in 1980s. I was there then. All right. Thank you very much. I would like to welcome TY DRAGO.
Hello, everyone. My name is TY DRAGO, and this is Chapter 1 of Rags. Let's start with a foreword. On December 10th, 1982, the famous steel pier in Atlantic City was destroyed by fire. The pier, with its music hall, exhibitions, world-class entertainment, and yes, a diving horse, had been a tourist staple and the crown jewel of the Atlantic City boardwalk for almost a century before the first casino was built. To this day, the actual circumstances behind the fire remain a mystery. December 7th, 1982, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Chapter 1. The first to go down is the pimply-faced gangbanger in the leather jacket. 1 second he's laughing with his crew, getting off on how scared I look, and how Corinne's just gone and passed out at my feet. The next, he gets grabbed from behind and yanked into the shadow of one of the big steel pilings. The move so sudden and swift that it almost seems like a magic trick. A moment later, Pimple screams. A moment after that, his body gets tossed out from behind the piling as if he were a rag doll instead of 160 pounds of wiry muscle. He flips end over end and lands with a loud thump in the sand. There he writhes, groaning and clutching his face with both hands. Despite the patchwork of shadows beneath the pier, there's no mistaking the blood. His face has been slashed. Wait, did I say slashed? Well, that's wrong. His face has been all but peeled away like an apple skin. And the whole thing took maybe 5 seconds. For several more seconds, nobody moves. Not me, certainly not poor out-of-it Corinne, and not the 3 other gangbangers circling us either. They're all in their late teens or early 20s, stoned out and itching to hurt somebody. A teenage girl like me coming out here was foolish, plenty foolish, but bringing my 9-year-old foster sister along cranked plenty foolish up to outright stupid. While being under Steel Pier at midnight wasn't exactly safe at the best of times, running into these dudes was the kind of boatload full of bad luck that could ratchet outright stupid all the way up to stone dead. Except suddenly, that boatload of bad luck had turned on the tide. "What happened to you, man?" one of the bangers yells. He stares at his homeboy, who's still wailing piteously. Then, realizing that Pimples has got nothing to say just now, he looks fearfully around. He's still clutching an open butterfly knife, the one he planned to use to cut away my clothes and coat and get a peek at the candy. Another of the gang yells out a stream of cusses that would have had Aunt Kel grounding me for sure. Then this third dude draws a gun, a snub-nosed .38 revolver from inside his coat. He starts waving it around, scanning the gloom for a target. A figure emerges from behind a pillar. He's bathed in shadow, but I get the impression of old clothes, mismatched and well-worn, a mixed bag of dumpster pickings from behind a thrift store. Most of it looks tattered, little more than rags. He's not a particularly big dude, and his shoulders are pretty slim, but for all that, there's something about him, a presence that's hard to overlook. It seems to run through the air like electricity. Oh, and he's holding an enormous, bloody knife. "Who the hell are you?" Butterfly demands. "Who cares?" 38 adds. Then, with another imaginative cuss, he fires. The muzzle flash is blinding and the noise deafening. bouncing off the concrete underside of the pier and momentarily drowning out the surf's constant rumble. But when the noise and flash subside, the figure's gone. Not dead, not shot, just gone. Only now, something sticks out of the front of 38's chest, jutting through his coat. It takes me a moment to get what it is. The point of a knife. His knife, Rag's knife. It's got a long blade of black metal that gives back none of the lamplight leaking out under the pier from the nearby boardwalk. The blade's darkness is so complete, so perfectly empty, that it almost looks like a triangular bit of 38's chest has been somehow erased. But the truth is way simpler. The banger's been impaled from behind. I try to scream, but I can't seem to make a sound. 38's eyes roll up inside his head. He topples over, revealing Rags, who leans down and smoothly pulls his knife out of the banger's back. My mind reeling, I take in the Raggedy Man's moth-riddled wool coat and the heavy hood he's wearing that completely conceals his face. I can't tell anything about him. I can't even say for sure it's a him. 2 gangbangers remain. One is Butterfly, who's taken to bobbing and weaving in a way I guess is supposed to look badass. The knife he's waving is hilariously small compared to the one Rags wields. Nevertheless, the dude does his best to compensate. "Back off, man," he screams. I'll cut you wide open." Rags doesn't reply. The last banger, the youngest of them, who hasn't said a thing so far and who didn't seem all that psyched about joining in his homeboy's rape murder party in the first place, just stares. Then he turns and runs face first into a steel piling. Sounds dumb, I know, but it's easier to do in the dark than you'd think. He staggers back from it, moaning and cupping his palms over what's got to be a broken nose. Then he drops to his knees in the sand. Butterfly apparently sees this as an opening and charges forward, yelling like an Apache in one of those old John Wayne movies Uncle Nick likes to watch. His knife raised, his eyes wild from dope and desperation, and a double-sized portion of fear. Rags kicks him. Hard. He does it like it's nothing, just lifts his foot, wrapped in an army boot that looks about 50 years old, and drives it straight into Butterfly's sternum. The gangbanger's Apache cries downshift into an agonized wheeze as he doubles over and then goes flying. 3 feet, 6 feet, 9. Jesus, how strong is this dude? Butterfly's body slams into a piling, the same one that Pimples was pulled behind, with terrific force. Despite the surf and the sound of Broken Nose's nasal sobs, I hear the dude's ribs crack. He manages a kind of broken wheeze before he drops to the sand, either out cold or close enough to it for it not to matter. I try to scream again. Nothing. I try to move. Can't. I want to throw myself over Corinne's body. She's still unconscious, though how the girl, the sweet, precious little girl, can stay fainted through all this noisy carnage is beyond me. I'm not even sure what good I'd be doing. Shielding her like that. I mean, this dude's knife is more like a machete, easily long enough to pin us both to the dunes. But she's my foster sister, and I have to do something. Except I can't freaking move. Fortunately, the Raggedy Man isn't interested in us. Instead, his attention turns toward the only remaining banger. Despite his whimpers and obvious pain, Broken Nose is doing his best to crawl away. "Abby?" It's Corinne. When I glance down at her, her eyes have opened. She sounds groggy, disoriented. "Shh," I hiss. "Abby, where are you?" I start to reply, but before I can get the words out, I hear footsteps in the sand behind me. Light, almost silent, and my heart freezes up. I glance over my shoulder. I don't want to. It's more reflex than conscious thought. After all, if Rags has decided it's my turn, there's probably not much I can do about it, and something tells me I'd rather not see it coming. But it's not coming, at least not yet. Instead, the Raggedy Man walks past us, slow and with an eerie grace, almost close enough to touch. He doesn't even glance at Corinne or me, but instead approaches Broken Nose. The last banger is still crawling, but when he sees what's coming after him, he manages to scramble to his feet and stumble desperately backward, making for the open beach beyond the pier. He doesn't get there. Rags explodes into motion, a patchwork blur that tears up the sand, dodging one piling after another. Then leaping up and vaulting smoothly sideways off a third, he pivots in midair and lands less than a foot in front of Broken Nose. Dude's a freaking acrobat. Broken Nose shrieks and tries to backpedal, but he's nowhere near fast enough. A grimy fist snaps out, cobra quick, catching the banger's coat and pulling him up and off his feet like he weighs nothing. Broken Nose starts wailing, Please, he stammers. Please don't. I didn't hurt nobody. I don't even know those guys. He covers his bloodied face with trembling hands and sobs. I don't blame him a bit. For several long seconds, Rags just studies the dude. Then, as I watch, he slowly raises his knife. And before I even realize I'm going to, I yell, "No!" To my surprise, scratch that, astonishment, Rags stops. He tilts his head past the banger and looks at me from under his cowl. My mouth goes dry. Even so, I steel myself and say, "Please, enough." He seems to consider a little longer. Then he drops Broken Nose, who lands hard in the sand, blood spraying across his already messed up face. But for all his terror, he's no fool, and he's up and running a moment later. Okay, maybe staggering is a better word, but at least he's getting away. Abandoning his homies, sure, but getting away. And Rags is letting him. The whole fight, start to finish, lasted maybe 45 seconds. Now, around us, one dude's dead, one's broken and unconscious, and one's sobbing and trying to keep his face attached. My breath catches as Rags comes toward us. My first instinct is to run, but it's like my legs are rooted in the sand. The best I can do is try to twist my body and put myself between him and Corinne. I'm only partway successful. "Abby?" Corinne asks again. "Shut up," I murmur. Shouting doesn't seem like the smart move right now. Rags stops about 4 feet away, looking at me with eyes I can't see. Under his hood, his features are a complete void, the shadows so deep that there might as well be nothing there at all. I swallow, looking at the blade. Rags clutches it tightly in his right fist, which is mostly buried inside the long, wide sleeve of his ratty wool coat. I can't even tell the color of his skin. For the first time, the smell of him hits me. Coffee grounds, urine, mildew, and rotting food. It's almost as if he's made of trash. Then he speaks. It's the first time he does, and his voice sends the mother of all chills down my spine. It's raspy like fingernails on a chalkboard and hard to listen to. It seems wrong, not quite human, and just the sound of it sets my teeth on edge. It doesn't help that his words are bullshit. "Vanyan, soldier." I almost reply, "What?" But then I catch myself. The last thing I want is to strike up a conversation with this head case. He raises his hand, not the knife hand, but the other one, his left hand. When he points, I get a quick glimpse of his skin, except I don't. What I see is totally caked with grime, oil, and sand. I still can't tell what color he is, but it's not a big hand, that much I'm sure about. With one finger, he points up the beach, the way we came, toward the same set of stairs that Corinne and I used to get here. He's letting us go. With a ton of effort, I gulp down what little spit I've got left. Then, glancing around one last time at the carnage, I whisper, "Thanks." For a long moment, Rags doesn't respond. Then his head nods ever so slightly, and he's gone. I don't mean he leaves. I don't mean he runs off cat quick like I've seen him do. I mean, he just kind of vanishes, like a ghost. Seeing it turns me cold in a way the December midnight air can't explain. My heart's going wild and I'm sweating. Can you be freezing and sweating at the same time? Seems you can. "Abby?" Corinne says. She pulls herself weakly up to a sitting position. "Where'd you go?" "I'm right here," I tell her, a little irritably. Is she blind? I think, immediately feeling bad about it. Corinne's not brave. She never has been. Fainting was like her go-to response when the banger surprised us. Not much of a defense mechanism, but the only one she's got. Besides, maybe she hit her head when she dropped. There are all kinds of things in the sand beneath the pier. Rocks, discarded chunks of concrete, broken beer bottles, and worse stuff. I'll have to check her for cuts or bumps once we find some light. "It's cool," I tell her. Then finally I get moving. "Keep your eyes closed," I say, reaching down and taking her hands. "Don't look around, you hear me, pumpkin?" Corinne doesn't argue. She just lets me pull her up. Then she hugs me hard and desperate. I hug back. Nearby, the Atlantic Ocean roars and crashes. Moving in slow, halting steps, I lead my foster sister away from the bodies and toward the somewhat safer boardwalk. Our little midnight adventure cut short. I could say that's how the whole thing started. I could, but I'd be lying. That's just where I've decided to start telling it. And that's chapter 1 of Rags.
Ty, thank you so much. That is some intense action to start off the book. That's great. Getting some great comments in the chat too. So I think really is. I'll tell you, I'm always a little bit hit or miss with books that start off with such intense action because sometimes you get the action without a connection to the characters, but this just pulled me right in, and I felt like a connection to the characters and got caught up in the action. So great job.
Thank you.
So this is we have I'm going to start right with a question from the chat, because it goes to one of the questions I was sort of leads into one of the things I wanted to ask about, and this is from Nick Dyack. So your story takes place in the early 80s. Is it drawing from some of the 80s retroism that has been going on lately? Sort of, I guess, the everything old is new again for the 80s.
It's drawing. If it's drawing from anything retro, it's probably me. I remember Steel Pier. I remember Atlantic City in the 80s when the casinos were just coming in, and I remember the diving horse. So I draw a lot of my memories of the place and the energy I remember and the vibrancy of it. And this story takes place after Steel Pier has been derelict for a couple of years, and postulates that energy is still there and for no good purpose. But no, I didn't go to Stranger Things for this. This is all me.
Cool. And that's kind of the question I was thinking to ask is, now I haven't read Rags yet, but I've gotten a sense from what I've read about it, and especially from the piece that you just read for us, that the setting in this book is almost as much of a character as the characters. Would that be accurate?
That is dead accurate. Yeah.
Okay.
Abby is obsessed with Steel Pier. She's what used to be called a creeper, somebody who investigates abandoned places, not to vandalize or steal, but rather just experience the history and the vibe of the place. Mm-hmm. And she's in love with Steel Pier's history and its energy and its magic. And so Steel Pier is very much a character in the story.
Cool. And we have a question from Vincent Mezzo. Do you have a personal history with Atlantic City? And I guess we'll extend that to say with Steel Pier, and has that influenced your writing?
Well, I'm a Jersey boy, born and raised. I grew up going to the Jersey Shore. I grew up visiting Atlantic City long before the first casino was built. Steel Pier was not like a pier as we imagine it today. It had a massive top-line theater there. Mm-hmm. Frank Sinatra played there. The Supremes played there. It was a major stop, as big and powerful as anything in New York or even Vegas at the time. All of it disappeared in the space of a few years. And last time I was there, and now there's a new Steel Pier after, in the location the old one was, but it's much more like a standard amusement pier. It doesn't have any of Steel Pier's originality or energy. But I remember seeing the pier after it burned and wondering where all of that energy went. And Rags was born out of an idea that old places have power.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you said about the new Steel Pier, because I think we look at places going back 100 years. There's history there. There was more regional individuality to these places. They were built in a certain way by the people who lived there. And when they're replaced these days, it seems to me like, the corporation comes in and builds it like 6 other places that you could find in any other city in the, in the United States. And it kind of loses that local character. Now, is the sense of history and setting, is that something that informs your other work, like the Undertakers series?
Well, the Undertakers are set in Philadelphia modern day, and I did a ton of research on that. I try to be as accurate as I can. I try to make Philadelphia a character in the book, much as the way that Steel Pier and Atlantic City is in Rags. It's fun. It adds a flavor of intimacy that an imagined city might not.
Yeah, and it gives you some touch points that resonate with the reader, I think. Cool. So tell us a little bit about your work on Allegory e-zine. So this you founded and have been running this for 2 decades.
1998, June of 1998, I founded Allegory.
Amazing.
With the sole intention of getting published. I hadn't been published yet, so I started this e-zine and showcased one of my own stories in every issue at first. And it got me published. In fact, it got me published and introduced me to my first book publisher. And through that, I got my first agent. Allegory really launched my career. Allegory's launched a bunch of careers. We have published hundreds of short stories from around the world, and we've gotten a number of people their starts. Really proud of it. Been around for a long time. Originally it was just me. Now it's a staff of 12.
Wow.
And we go through 600-700 submissions per issue, and publish 12. So the bar is high. So the stuff that's in there is the stuff we think is the cream of the crop.
What's the publication frequency?
Well, it's changed over the years. It's currently twice a year.
Okay.
When it started, it was 4 times a year. Then went to 3 times a year, only twice a year. But the number of stories published per year never changed. So it went from 6 stories per issue to 8 stories per issue. Now it's 12 stories per issue. So it's still 24 stories published a year.
Cool.
But it's a little bit easier on me because I'm not a young man anymore. It's harder to keep up the pace.
It gives you some time to read through those 600 or 700 submissions.
I have a lot of committed slush readers.
That's great. And so can you tell us anything about the Undertaker's book that has been optioned for film?
Well, it's been optioned for about, almost 10 years now. Okay. Hollywood takes its time. We have a fantastic script that was penned by Jeffrey Reddick, who was the creator of the Final Destination movie series. And he and I have become friends, and he's a great guy, and the script is fantastic. And it's just been, this deal or that deal, or tweaking this way, tweaking that way. It's, it's been a wild ride, and I've had a ton of fun. It's a blast.
That's
interesting.
Cool.
It's an education.
But yeah, I haven't had the experience firsthand, but I that's what I hear from people who have, is interesting, an education, a wild ride. But we have one more question we'll take from our audience tonight. This is from Teresa Derwin. What are your favorite tropes or types of stories?
Ooh, that's 2 different questions. I like to be surprised. I like what I tell people when they say, what do you like to see in the easy? And I tell them, all right, if you make me laugh, you've got a good shot. If you make me cry, you're in. If you've got something original to say about vampires or Nazis, bring it on, because I don't see anything original being said about vampires or Nazis. I like something cute and quirky and fun, and I look for that, and not just in the professional reading, for Allegory, but in my in the stuff I read on the side, the private stuff, the stuff that I enjoy on my own. I like the quirky stuff.
Cool. All right, that's great. Well, Ty, thank you so much for the reading.
My pleasure.
We'll have you come back on at the end so we can talk about what you have coming up next.
Sounds good.
We're going to move on to our next reader. So thank you, Ty. All right, our next reader is Sumiko Saulson. Sumiko is an award-winning speculative poet and author of Afrosurrealist and multicultural horror, and a comic zine maker. Winner of the HWA Scholarship from Hell 2016, BCC Voice Reframing the Other contest 2017, the Mixy Award 2017, the Afrosurrealist Writer Award in 2018, the HWA Diversity Grant in 2020, Ladies of Horror Fiction Grant in 2021, and the HWA Richard Laymon President's Award in 2021. They have an AA in English from Berkeley City College and write a column called Writing While Black for a national Black newspaper, the San Francisco BayView. Sumiko is the host of the SOMA, Leather and LGBT Cultural District's Erotic Storytelling Hour, and teaches courses at the Speculative Fiction Academy. All right, join me in welcoming Sumiko.
Hi, thank you very much. So tonight I'm going to be reading some stuff from the Rat King, which is a book of speculative poetry. And I meant to actually put the timer on to make sure that I didn't go over my time. So, and I didn't do it on time. So, yeah, sorry about that. Okay. There we go. The first poem that I'm going to read is called Under the Water. Okay. Oversea, floating ye, staying abreast of watery crests. Midwinter air caresses curls unfurling over briny sea. Cool, wet skin, paper thin, I can see your soul within. Every capillary pumping blood, intestinal processes digesting food. Your loving heart, plain to see, how intimate your transparency. A sea-deep mystery, stories untold, windows into your ancient soul. Your eyes speckled flecks of gold, cascading within jet black coal, encasing your exquisite charms, enfolded within my fragile arms. I am the contemplator of your delicacy. Hear ye now my mortal pleas. May your eternal heart, thorny spine, and eternal love be forever mine. Adrift on my back, your tentative fingers in mine entwined, long slender tail wrapped around my thighs, tendrils twixt toes, the smooth flesh of your undercarriage where barnacles grow. My flesh puckers where their tiny mouths burrow into my skin, digesting the healthy white blood cells within. Risen have you from the darkest depths where men do not reside. I gave you a place within my skin where creatures dark abide. Do not leave me alone nor recede like the sand does from the tide, but carry me along with ye, astride my floating bounty be. Feast upon the only vessel strong enough to return ye to the sea. The curve of my hip rises over the crest of the wave, like the manatees mistaken for mermaids in ancient days. Upon my waist your appendages rest, rising and falling with bated breath against my naked breast. Bare is my soul as we drift intertwined out to the darkest depths of ancient seas. Now the time has come to sink below, and mystery is akin to fear. I am not sure that I should trust you, but I can't seem to do that which would separate us. So I hold you near and prepare myself, emptying lungs of unnecessary breath as I prepare to enter your icy depths. It is good, I sigh, floating over torrid waves, near watery graves, past broken ships torn asunder, adrift in somber, pallid fog. Your hand in mine, you guide me, sweet, through jagged caves of coral deep, caverns stained sinister red with the blood of shattered sailors misled. It is only I you choose to guide you into hidden realms of volcanic caves. It is good now and gets better still, you insist, demanding that I become servant to your capricious will. I kiss skeletal hands upon which lichens creep, extending their long fingers aloft from the deep. the seaweed embraces their distended, rotting skin. These are the mortals who have joined me under the sea, giving up their useless lives willingly. You coo into my ear, tender and sweetly sighing, while in my fingers caress the bloated flesh of a young merchant seaman beautifully dying. Become my queen, you sing in melodious strain of aural waves weaving in and out of the subsonic range. Your fingers are tendrils that kiss and caress aching skin. Your hair smells like sea foam, dried kelp, and summer breeze. Think of the human life on which we shall feed. Be only mine, leave your seafaring comrades behind. Their flesh is best suited for that upon which immortals dine. In the days when Poseidon was worshipped and the Kraken king, these humans would offer me most anything. Their nubile children, fresh and young, bound for me to dine upon. Join me and let's start this worship anew. The souls of men will become yours, and you and I will dine on tender flesh of misbegotten youth, called time after time onto the rocky shores by the lovely sound of your siren voice, shipwrecked and helpless, waiting for you, brainwashed and given no choice. Feast upon the maiden's breast, hear and tear out her heart from her heaving chest. For you, my love, the best in all things, trust and believe this is true. But if truth, it is not, and so I lie. Think of the glorious ways in which you might die. There is no need to fear the dark. This is my kingdom, come within. What is there to fear, mortal? Even if you lose, you win. So, wow, that was 8 minutes. It was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. And that is a poem that is about a kraken that is trying to seduce a ship and convince the ship to become a ghost ship. Since there's not that much time, I'm going to read these because they're cute and funny. They're not really all haiku at all. But they're called zombie haiku, so please bear with me that they're not all actually haiku. Since I have been dead, I have hungered for your brains. Words escape me. Arg. The look in your eyes, your deeply passionate lips, eaten by maggots. Empty street, man alone. Bottle rocket launcher raised. I lurch by slowly. No brains make angry. Humans all dead, now hungry. Cat brain snack, yummy. Bird chirps in cherry tree. Emissary of nature sings, I am rotting. Toothache is gone now. My jaw fell off completely, eating my dentist. Okay, wow. That's all of them. And that's, wow, that is 10 minutes. I mean, there's like 46 minutes left, but I'm going to say that's it. I am done. Thank you.
Wow. Well, I just have to say for that last one, I spent 2 hours in the dentist chair this week from a broken tooth, and I drove my friend to 2 different dentist appointments this week. So I'm loving that eating the dentist one. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sumiko.
Thank
Those
you.
were fantastic, beautiful. The long poem was just mesmerizing. Now, are those all from the Rat King?
Yeah, they're all from the Rat King. So the Rat King has poems that that are just from like in the last year. And it has some poems that were previously published. And the long poem was, I was in something called the Next Great Horror Writer contest on a podcast called Horror Addicts back in, wow, what was that? I think that was 2018 or something, or 2017, whatever. And so I got to 6th place, which, you know, isn't bad.
Great.
It isn't the same as winning. The winner won a book contract with Crystal Lake Publishing. And I didn't win that, but I did get to 6th place. And so they picked that poem to actually go into their picks from it. So yeah, and it was kind of fun being on it, like doing different challenges and stuff every week and stuff.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
we have some questions from the audience, so I think we'll just jump in with a couple of them. This is from Teresa Derwin. How did you develop the spoken word skills? The reading is terrific.
Thank you. So I actually started out my writing as a spoken word poet. So that's something that I started doing when I was in high school. And when I was 20, the San Francisco, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to be 55 this year. So that was a long time ago. The San Francisco Chronicle actually wrote me up as an up and coming, neobeat poet. Which of course, now they'd say spoken word, but that was back in 1988. So I've been doing it for a long time, and I actually haven't been doing it as much, you know what I'm saying? Because I've been writing novels and, short stories and stuff more, but this book is really giving me a lot of opportunities to go back to my roots in spoken word poetry, which actually really makes me feel happy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And, we have another question that seems to be a great segue from that, which is the rhythm and delivery reminds me of a spoken word I once heard accompanied by jazz music. When you write your poetry, do you have some type of music or melody in mind?
So first of all, I have definitely been at spoken word around the Bay Area several times where they start playing that in the background, jazz music. So I actually have read to jazz music a bunch of times, and also to electronic and dark wave music, because that's part of what you do when you're a spoken word poet. But what I actually, and I'm a lyricist, I actually have written songs as well. But what I do is I read it aloud when I'm writing it. So it is actually written to be read. So I will read the lines aloud to see what they sound like in my mouth as I'm putting them down on paper, which is why anytime I get a chance to actually read them, I feel really lucky, because I feel like there's a element to the poems that people may not get when they're reading it on page the way they will when hearing it, because it is actually, spoken word is written to be read. Mm-hmm. But I don't really think of a particular type of music. And I admit this, I was a MySpace rapper back in the MySpace days. So I have done a lot of improv rapping, like actual rap. So I might be thinking of rap more than jazz, even though it maybe doesn't sound as weary and cool to admit that.
That's fine. That's fine. One of the things I really enjoyed listening to this, it reminds me of, I love hearing people read their own work in any case, but hearing the poetry, I get much the same feeling when Linda Addison reads her work. And so the two of you both have this wonderful, wonderful talent to take a word and draw it out with that word and hold it, and it puts such a wonderful inflection and subtle emphasis on it. So thank you for sharing that. That's really wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that a lot of people maybe haven't been. So first of all, I want to say this. I met Linda through my friend Rain Graves, who is also a horror poet, and who really is my mentor, honestly. So like 10 years ago, when I was first just going around doing local regions and stuff, I was going around with Rain. And if you do, I'm just going to say this, if you go to a lot of poetry readings and stuff, especially if you're an African-American person going to African-American poetry readings, you it is a part of the culture. It really and truly is. So, you know, I think that me and Linda both have that because of being a part of the culture, part of the African American slam poetry culture, but also part of the spoken word tradition, if that makes sense. And not like, so, you know, for me, I love Edgar Allan Poe as a poet, but I also love like Warsan Shire, which is the poet that's on the Beyonce Lemonade video. So much love for that poet. So yeah.
Cool.
That's great. And we do have one more question from the audience. It's continuing. I guess, you know, people are really hearing music in your words, and so it's still talking. We've already talked a bit about the music, but there's an interesting part of this question we haven't talked about. So music seems to be an inspiration for you. Or are there other things that influence and inspire your poetry too?
Yeah, definitely. I think that if you read the book, you will find that there are a whole bunch of so I lost a lot of people in my family, which and friends, and unfortunately this is not an uncommon experience for people when they're my age. So I lost my mother at the beginning of 2019 after a long battle with cancer. There are definitely poems in there that are very much things that are really related to me processing grief over the loss of my mother. We were really, really very close. And I'm a biracial person. My mother was African American and my father Ashkenazi Jewish. But when my mother passed away, really a lot of things, I mean, it's hard to explain really, but when I was walking through the world with my mother always protected me from a lot of things regarding institutionalized racism. And even though, and I am disabled, I have mental illness, even though I was 50 when she died, I was like I was suddenly out in the world alone, having to deal with this stuff alone for the first place. And it sounds really naive for a 50-year-old, right? But a lot of systemic horror and injustice that I'm writing about through the lens of horror in this, because I'm not Jordan Peele, but I definitely do that thing. I do that thing, and I try not to sound too preachy doing it. But I try to be entertaining, but I do that. And a lot of it is coming from a place of personal pain that I was dealing with, going through with the loss of my mother, with serious like mental health issues that I had, having to deal with my mom dying, because I have PTSD and bipolar with psychotic features, and my mental health got really, 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 really bad. So a lot of that stuff is being processed, and there are a lot of things in there that are horror stories that are really things that I was feeling like I was hallucinating, and I have tactile hallucinations, and it's really scary when things that don't exist touch you. So it's hard to talk to people about that as like a thing that's happened to you, but it's easy to talk to them about it as part of a horror story that you just wrote. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff in there that,
I'm so glad that you have that as a vehicle to share some of your thoughts and your feelings and to deal with it yourself and express it. And I personally think that's one of the really dynamic and wonderful features of horror, is that we talk about the stuff that nobody else wants to talk about in fiction a lot of the time. And we allow both ourselves and the reader to address things that people don't want to address sometimes. So thank you for sharing all your words and your thoughts. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to show. I forgot to do this when I was.
Oh yeah, this cover is fabulous. Yeah.
But I want to share the cover of the Rat King. It really is terrific. So this is Rat King.
Yeah, Gabrielle Foss did that cover. It is glorious. I love it so much. She is so talented as an artist and as a writer, and she makes really cool jewelry too. But I love that.
Cool. Yeah.
The idea of a Rat King, which Gabrielle captured really well in this illustration, is one of the few things that genuinely gets under my skin and gives me the creeps. This idea of these rats with their tails tied together.
I didn't read the title poem, but the title poem is actually about a group of homeless people, spoiler alert, it's about a group of homeless people that get frozen stuck together like that. Because like the Rat King is something that people fear, but it's actually just a whole bunch of rats that are trapped together. They, so it's about, it's a ghost story about homeless people who died stuck together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, it's intense.
Yeah, that's a great connection to make to the Rat King image.
Yeah.
So, well, I think we're going to bring Ty and Sam back on and talk about whatever.
Yeah, 3 great readings tonight.
Yeah, fantastic. And Sumiko, we'll have to have you on again because I really did want to get into some questions about your comics work and the differences between poetry and visual storytelling and things like that.
Yes, and poetry and prose. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll have to when you have some time later this year or next year, we'll have you come back on for that.
That'd be great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so let's bring back Sam.
Yay.
Hi. All right. Thank you.
Hey. I really mean it, guys. Everybody did such a great job with the readings and such different stories, but each one really drew us right in. So thank you very much for sharing your time and your talent. So we appreciate it.
Yes. Yeah, I want to second that. It was just a really wonderful series of readings. And I think I'm going to share this one comment just because I was
about to do that too. Yeah. Thank you, Avis. I was about to say the same thing. You guys are killing me. My TBR pile just went huge,
Yes,
so.
yeah. Every so often we get a comment about how we're killing people's book buying budgets by having people on and doing such great readings. So, but let's hear about what we can look forward to. Sam, since you are our first reader, do you want to give us the lowdown on what's on the horizon for you? I know Edenville is coming out.
Yeah, Edenville is coming out. I think the tentative release date is October 3rd. So we're counting down the days. But I think you can pre-order it now, even though there's still not a cover. Like the Barnes & Noble page is up, so check it out. I don't know what works on there or whatever, but so that's coming up. And then we're starting to work on Poorly Made, which I think might be fall of 2024. But in between, I love anthologies and collections that do more than just this is a straight up collection, so I have this one that I'm working on that's sort of a playlist of a couple high school kids on a road trip, and every story is a different song. So that one will be fun. I'm excited to look at that one a bit more in the spring. So that's what I got.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
So I think we had, I'm just going to take a moment here. We have one person who joined us late. I see in the comments. I just want to let everyone know that this is recorded and will be available on the Galactic Terrors YouTube channel. Usually it's up there by later this tonight, but certainly by tomorrow. So if you did miss any of the readings tonight or a part of the session, feel free to check that out after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Ty, how about you? What's coming up?
Oh boy. Well, I've signed contracts for a 2-volume novel called The New Americans, which is based on some cassette tapes my father recorded before he died in 1992. Wow. Quite a story there. It's a very big book. It's a very big departure for me. It's a story that's taken me a very, very long time to write. In addition to that, I have a near future science fiction retelling of the Scarlet Pimpernel that's being looked at right now called Checkmate. And I just finished my return to horror in a haunted church story called Saint Damned. So
yay! Come back to the dark side. We have chocolate. Yeah.
I
like. Cool. Well, that's exciting. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And then, so, I mean, that was something also we didn't get a chance to talk about, Ty, but I was hoping to ask you about the collaboration with your father that goes into The New American. So people can learn more about that on your podcast, right? Legacy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Legacy, the novel writing experience. My wife and I did it, and it's all about how to write a novel told through the lens of this book I'm trying to write based on my father's tapes.
Cool. And is that is that easy to find? Should they go to your website?
Oh, it's everywhere. Yeah.
Okay.
Anywhere you get podcasts.
Great. Terrific. All right. Sumiko, what do you have coming up now? How are you going to follow up the Rat King?
So yeah, I already have started another book of poetry, which is called Melancholia. Poetry is kind of one of these things. I'm writing it anyway. It's just I can't stop that. But also, I am going to be in an anthology that's coming out on Mocha Memoirs Press this year, called Blackened Roots, which is stories of zombies from the African diaspora. So that'll be a fun project. And I have I'm going to be in Manner of Frights, which is also Horror Addicts anthology, and that one is like every room in this manor. Yeah, well, you get it. I have I have an essay in a book called which just came out, I think actually late last year, called It Came from the Closet: Queer Reflections in Horror. So that's that is a cool book that I am a part of. And I'm a part of a book that just came out that's got horror erotica, which I don't know if that's all of your things, but it's called Blurred Erotica: Two Couples Therapy, with the late, great Valjean Jeffers having a story in it, and Penelope Flynn is putting that out, and that's all Black horror erotica for the grown and sexy folks. So, yeah. Oh, wait, it's not. Some of it's, I'm sorry, some of it's sci-fi erotica. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, we're Galactic Terrors.
About mine, like everyone's.
Right,
yeah.
Yeah.
We
cover the.
No one can hear you scream. So
that gives a whole new meaning to it, Jim. Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, that's fun. I'm really excited about that zombie one from Blackened Roots, because I think that's going to have some really new takes on zombie tales. You know, I think that's
it was really fun to write for that. I'm going to be honest. And they had well, I don't want to take up like all the time talking, but they had a fundraiser thing for it, and they did a wow, I forget, what do they call it, where they write someone's name into the story? There's a name for that.
Zuckerization.
Yeah, they auctioned off a Zuckerization of my story, and someone bought that.
Cool.
Yeah, that was fun. That was really cool. And oh yeah, also I'm going to be the Toastmaster at Mile High Con this year, which is
cool.
Which is the first time anything like that like happened for me, because I'm still kind of a baby horror writer. So yeah, that's big.
That's great.
That's fantastic. Yeah, lots of great stuff coming up.
Yeah. Awesome. How about you, Jim? What do you have coming up?
Oh dear, you put me on the spot, Carol. No.
Yes, I did.
Well, I think that the very next thing I have coming up is a story in the next issue of Cemetery Dance, which should be coming out hopefully by March. So I'm very excited about that. Cemetery Dance is one of those horror magazines I've been reading for decades, and so it's really cool to have a story there finally. So, and then more stuff later in the year, but I'll keep it short.
Yeah, cool.
How about you, Carol?
Well, not too much I can say for sure out loud, but I have a cosmic horror story coming soon, and a Poe-based story coming later, and I have a bunch of collections of things that I'm putting together, so nothing definite there. But I am doing a reading coming up at the Rooftop Reading Series that's being held at Barron's Intense Tasting in Industry City in Brooklyn, and that is at like a week from Tuesday, I believe, on the 21st. So that's a lot of fun. And if anybody's in the area and is interested in that, Randy Dawn is one of our HWA New York members, and she runs this really cool reading series that a number of us have been to, and you can get tickets online there. So it switched to a new location where Jim and I have also done some events for our anthology, Even in the Grave, at that place. So that's very cool. So
that's a cool place.
Yeah, it's a cool place. Yeah. Cool. So really neat. Well, this, speaking of cool, here we are, it's February. Some places it's really cool. Some places it's ludicrously warm. It's a good thing there's no such thing as climate change. I should write about that. Yeah. So
great. All right. And then I think we have AuthorCon 2, some folks will be there in Williamsburg, Virginia, coming up at the end of March 29th to the 30th in Williamsburg, Virginia. I know I'll be there. Carol, you'll be there.
Yeah.
Anyone else here going to AuthorCon this year? Sam?
I'll be there.
All right. Oh, carpool. Yeah.
Yeah, my buddy Vin is coming too, but he doesn't write horror. He writes like fun little poems sometimes, but he's just mostly a wingman. So he'll be there too.
Cool. Oh, fun.
I want to hear his side of that description, Sam.
Yeah. Oh, and you know what?
Right.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I forgot to say something. Gordon Linsner is another one of our HWA members in the New York chapter, and I forgot to say that Gordon and I are reading together at Rooftop Readings. This is what happens at the end of a long night of listening to other people's wonderful words. I kind of forget my own words. So yeah, looking forward to reading with Gordon.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So Sam, Ty, Sumiko, anything else you'd like to say to our audience tonight before we wrap up our session?
It's been a great experience. Thanks for having me.
Stay spooky.
Yeah. Thank you, and stay spooky.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Go read something.
So I will just, of course, remind everyone that Galactic Terrors takes place every second Thursday of the month. And that's pretty easy to remember, but you can help yourself remember by clicking subscribe to follow future Galactic Terrors transmissions. Apparently, YouTube has gotten rather sophisticated, and if you subscribe to a channel, YouTube will tell you when there are new events on that channel, which is pretty amazing. I think we've come so far from the era of the telegraph, haven't we?
Yes.
And you can also sign up for our Galactic Terrors newsletter. We do not spam you. I think, Carol, we send out about twice a month, right? Yeah. Just to announce the next session, and then the reminder. Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say, I try to send out 3 a month, which means you usually get 2. So that's fine.
That's it. And we do give away ebooks every month. So if you are a newsletter subscriber, there's always a chance that you'll get a cool free book. So feel free, if you're not a subscriber, to go ahead and sign up for that, and we'll be happy to put you in for the drawing. Yeah. We'll be back on March 9th. As of now, we have, for the next Galactic Terrors reading, we have Michael Sisko and Lou Rara coming on. And Lou is going to be a very special guest. Lou does all of our videos. So our video intros and outros and the author intro videos are all the work of the mastermind that Lou Rara is. He's a video wizard.
And Michael Sisko helped keep me sane during the pandemic with one of his chapbooks. I got to hear him on an online presentation, so I'm excited that he'll be joining us. That'll be great.
I think Michael's another author coming on whose work is on the preliminary ballot this year. I think his monograph about weird fiction, right, was on the nonfiction ballot. So fantastic.
Yeah, very cool.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun.
It has.
Yeah. So thank you all. Thank you in the audience. We hope you'll come back for future Galactic Terrors transmissions. And I think I'm going to just echo what Sumiko said. Stay spooky.
Yeah. Good night to the Halloween people.